Hello everyone, it's Daniel from TechMind Factory and welcome to this next video from the series called IdentiSphere Explorer. In this video, I would like to talk about Azure AD B2C transition guide and specifically help you make a decision whether to choose Microsoft Entra external ID or Auth0. So let's start. Let's start with important fact because maybe some of you are not even aware what happened. So Azure AD B2C is deprecated. So effective May 1st, 2025, Azure AD B2C will no longer be available to purchase for new customers. This is the information that you can find in the official documentation provided by Microsoft for Azure AD B2C. Obviously, current Azure AD B2C customers can continue using the product, and also the operational commitments, including service level agreements, security updates, and compliance, will also remain unchanged. However, important thing is that Azure AD B2C will no longer be developed. No new features will land in this product. So the thing is that it's worth to actually think about some migration scenarios. And obviously, important fact is that Microsoft will continue supporting Azure AD B2C until at least May 2030. However, I still believe that it's good to at least validate whether it makes sense to migrate to the new platform, which I'm going to talk about in this video, or maybe choose another vendor like Auth0. So here is the thing. Microsoft Entra External ID is successor of Azure AD B2C. It's this new service, new product developed by Microsoft to handle or to make it easier to build CIAM solutions, so customer identity and access management solutions. It enables organizations to securely collaborate with partners, customers, and contractors outside their organization, okay? And important thing is that obviously this is new product, so not all the required features are supported in this product. So having said that, I just want to mention that still Microsoft Entra External ID has a big potential. However, it's not so mature yet, at least, as Azure AD B2C was. Okay, so let's talk about this decision. So which one should I choose? Microsoft Entra External ID or Auth0? Okay, and the thing is that when I was creating this video, I was thinking about different kinds of aspects related to both products and actually where it makes sense to stay with Microsoft and use Microsoft Entra External ID as a successor of Azure AD B2C, or where it makes sense to look at Auth0, which is mature CIAM solution provided by Okta. So in this video, I will provide the details which hopefully will help you actually make the right decision. Okay, so let's start with Microsoft Entra External ID. So when can it make sense to choose Microsoft Entra External ID? So if you already utilize Microsoft technology stack, so it means that you already have Microsoft Entra ID for workforce identity, you utilize Azure Cloud, you have Office 365 in your organization, then it probably makes sense to look at Microsoft Entra External ID. Why? Because you will have exactly the same technology stack. And I know from working with different kinds of organizations that still, even if a product is not mature, the thing is that there are some strategies developed, and there are some technology partners selected. So naturally, if you utilize Microsoft technology stack, you probably will look at Microsoft Entra External ID, and it makes perfect sense to do it. So another thing is that if you don't have any special requirements for branding and deep UI customization, Microsoft Entra External ID can be for you. And obviously, I have my another video on YouTube called Comprehensive Overview of Microsoft Entra External ID. I encourage you to watch it to see all the things in details. However, the thing is that Microsoft Entra External ID is limited when it comes to UI branding. So obviously, we can customize the look and feel of login registration pages, but at the moment of recording this video, there is only the possibility to do it at the tenant level. So we can only have like one background, we can only have one set of colors for our buttons, one logo, etc. We cannot set per app branding. So if we have different kinds of applications in our solution and we would like to use different authentication experience for them, that's not possible, at least currently with Microsoft Entra External ID. Another thing is that if you don't need to use any additional security features like financial grade API provided by OpenID. So for instance, if you don't need to use push authorization requests, or you are not building, like some high secure application in healthcare or in banking industry, Microsoft Entra External ID can be like a perfect match for you, especially from the cost perspective. And this is what we are going to talk about in this video too. And the last thing is that if you don't have any special requirements for additional integrations in different steps of user authentication journeys, Entra External ID is for you. So obviously, it doesn't mean that Microsoft Entra External ID does not provide any external integrations, because it does. So, for instance, you can grab information from external systems and include this information in form of claims in the resulting tokens that will be issued to your application. So during the user authentication, you can call external system like CRM, grab some information about the user and include this information in the token. But also, there are two additional events that you can subscribe to in Microsoft Entra External ID. Those are more on the registration side, user registration side. So you can, for instance, validate the data that user provided on the form. And also, there is event which is actually triggered when user clicks register button. And then you can call external system, for instance, to send this information about the user. However, the thing is that this capability is still limited, because you can call the external system during the registration. However, it doesn't mean that this system will be called after user is created. So actually, you don't have access to unique user identifier. So the external system is called before actually the user is created in Microsoft Entra External ID, before it's registered. So obviously you can grab some additional details. You can send those details to external system. However, if there is a need to inform external system about the unique user identifier after registration, that's not possible. Obviously, you can send email address provided by user, but no unique identifier is there. So it's called post-registration event, and there is nothing like this in Entra External ID. You can only call this system during the registration before actually user is registered. But for some scenarios, it can be enough. Okay, so on the other side, we have Auth0. So the thing is that Auth0 is mature, robust SIAM solution. That's how it is. That's the reality. It's there on the market a long time. And the thing is that you can use Auth0 if you need to support user authentication journeys with different brandings for different kinds of applications. So Auth0 branding is highly customizable. So if you work with Azure AD B2C in the past, and especially custom policies, those beautiful XML files, you probably know that like you could customize the branding. You could use your own HTML, CSS files, and similar concepts are here in Auth0. So if you need to have per app branding, if you need to make some adjustments, if you need to change colors, backgrounds, stuff like this, you can do it with this new universal login experience. And also, if you have special requirements for additional integrations in different steps of user authentication journeys, So during events like before user is registered, after user is registered, when user is authenticated, after password reset, all those kinds of different events are supported by Auth0. So you can really subscribe to those different kinds of events. It's very extensive. So at different levels of the authentication journey, you can actually integrate with those external services, which can be really helpful. And also the thing is that if you need additional security features like financial grade API, as I mentioned before, so for instance, push authorization requests, and you are building, like a highly secure solutions and applications, Auth0 is FAPI compliant. So actually there is a highly regulated identity suite of features provided in Auth0, which you can use to increase the level of security of authentication for your users in your applications. Okay, perfect. So another thing is about the cost. And I know that many people, especially at C-level, they will not probably look at the functionalities. They will look at the cost. Like, hey, what is the cost? Because maybe we can actually utilize the basic features in Microsoft Entra External ID, but because of the fact it's way cheaper, it makes sense for us. Maybe yes, maybe not. Let's see. So the thing is that actually 50,000 monthly active users are for free in Microsoft Entra External ID. Monthly active user is the user in Entra External ID that authenticated at least once in a month. So it doesn't matter how often this user will actually authenticate. It is counted only once in a month. So we can have 50,000 monthly active users in our tenant, and we will not pay for those users. And until May 2025, there was like a discount. So in this case, the price was really low, around 1 cent, as you can see, per monthly active user. And after May 2025, we have to pay 3 cents for one monthly active user. Obviously, more if we have more than 50,000 monthly active users, which are for free. And there is also additional cost factor for phone authentication. There are different prices for different countries, like low-cost countries. You can see that the price is different than in high-cost countries. So you have to carefully calculate your cost. But in the end, if we look at this calculation, and let's say that we have 100,000 monthly active users in our tenant, it will cost us $3,000. However, because first 50,000 monthly active users are for free, we will actually pay $1,500 per those users. Okay, so a half. So as we can see, it's not a lot. And basically, the truth is that we can start with Microsoft Entra External ID for free, actually. And if we don't have any of those special requirements I mentioned before, it makes perfect sense actually to use Microsoft Entra External ID, especially if you already utilize Microsoft Stack and you don't have any special requirements. It will be really cheap. On the other side, we have Auth0. And situation here is a bit different. So if we look at pricing in Auth0, it has been updated, actually. That's very important information. So 25,000 monthly active users are for free, okay? So I have what we see in Microsoft Entra External ID. So 25,000 monthly active users are for free in Auth0. And then, obviously, we have those different plans, okay? There is Essentials plan, Professional plan, and Enterprise plan. And if we look at Essentials, let's say, for a B2C case, if we will have actually 20,000 monthly active users, we will pay $1,400, okay? So it means that if we compare the pricing here, we have $1,400 for 20,000 monthly active users plus 25,000 monthly active users for free. Okay, so in this specific scenario, as we can see, yes, there is a difference in the pricing. So Auth0 actually is more expensive, but on the other side, it provides more robust functionalities and more flexibility. So it's always good to think about this balance. So between, cost and what can be actually be implemented with both platforms. So in this case, there is a question: should decision be made by a cost? Okay, and many people will ask about it. There will be hard conversations like, hey, like which one is cheaper actually? So before deciding, basing only on the cost aspect, it's worth verifying all the functionalities and use cases for building modern SIAM platform with either Auth0 or Microsoft Entra External ID. So obviously look at the cost, calculate, like make estimate how many monthly active users you will have in your system. But once you have the cost calculation, then validate which actually functionalities you need. Because, for instance, if you need, like a highly customizable experience for authentication journeys, if you need to integrate with different kinds of systems at different authentication journey levels, probably Auth0 is for you. And that's the solution you are looking for, especially if you are, building applications in highly regulated industries like banking. It makes sense. But on the other side, if you are an organization and you have some applications that should be actually exposed externally for end users, and you don't have any special requirements for branding, for customizing authentication journeys, and you already utilize Microsoft Stack, it makes perfect sense to stay with Microsoft Entra External ID. Okay, I think that that's enough about the theory. That was about the cost and some aspects here. But I want to also do a practical overview of both platforms so you can actually see what's possible, what are some of the capabilities to make this decision easier for you, which platform to choose. So let's see both platforms in action. So let's start with Microsoft Entra External ID. As I mentioned, I have a comprehensive overview on my YouTube channel, so there is another video with such an overview. But in this video, I just want to show you some of the features here available. So first of all, Microsoft Entra External ID for customers, it's a separate tenant. So it's a separate tenant than your Microsoft Entra ID tenant for workforce. I just want to make it clear. There is this difference. So you have a totally separate directory for your external users. So once you sign in under entra.microsoft.com, you can actually access Microsoft Entra External ID once it's created. Obviously, Azure subscription is required to get the most of the platform. So that's important thing. And that's what I mentioned. Like if you already have Microsoft Stack in your organization, you have Azure Cloud, potentially Microsoft Entra External ID is a good choice. But obviously, it strongly depends on the requirements for functionalities. So I think that it's worth to mention actually that once Microsoft Entra External ID tenant is created, we have this possibility to set up user flows. And user flows are those, authentication journeys. So sign in, sign up, things like this. So here I can actually create new user flow by clicking new user flow. And as we can see, I can sign in with email and password or email and one-time passcode. So two methods are available here. Obviously, there is a possibility to integrate Microsoft Entra External ID with external identity providers so we can use federation. So we can, for instance, use Facebook, we can use Google, and also we can federate with a corporate Entra ID. And obviously, we have a flexibility when it comes to user attributes. So which attributes will be collected on the sign up page, which are important for us during the registration. Once such flow is created, let me show you this here actually. We can associate such flow with an application in our tenant. So obviously we can register applications here in our tenant, and then we can associate the application with such user flow, and then when user naturally will click login button, will be redirected to this authentication flow. So this is how it looks like. And as I mentioned, there is no possibility to customize I would say the journey here. So once you create a sign up, sign in flow, you cannot modify, like the steps in this flow. So for instance, if you would like to, add additional page or add additional component to UI, that's not possible, at least at the moment of recording this video. So let me click run user flow so I can show you how such flow looks like. So here I will select my test application. I will click run now. And I'm redirected to the login page. And as you can see here, there is like a background. There is my logo of the organization, Tech My Factory. I can provide my email. I can sign in either with password or one-time passcode. I can also register myself here, okay? And obviously, there is also a possibility to reset password if you forgot one. So if I type like this, techmindfactory.com, and I will click next, you can see that here I can click forgot password, and then the code is sent to my email. And now important thing is that, as I mentioned, unfortunately, we cannot customize this authentication journey, okay? Any of those elements. So obviously at the tenant level, we can change the background, we can use some colors, we can update the logo here. However, we cannot customize the user journey as it was possible with Azure AD B2C and custom policies, where we had this flexibility, to actually combine different steps together in the custom policy to actually build this rich authentication journey. So this is how it looks like. If we get back to tenant management, about the branding. So as you can see, there is company branding, and that's what I mentioned. There is the branding applied at the tenant level. So here, if I click edit, this is actually the place where I can customize the look and feel of my tenant. So here is the background selected. Obviously, I can upload background image. There is layout, which you can apply. Okay, so full screen background, for instance, or partial screen background. There is header, footer that can be applied, sign-in form with the banner logo, as you can see. And in the end, this is just one place where you can customize the look and feel. And obviously, when it comes to, CSS customization, like fonts, colors of the buttons, you can also do it, okay? That's worth mentioning. However, as I mentioned, like per app branding is not possible to be implemented, at least at the moment of recording this video. Okay, perfect. So as I mentioned, Microsoft Entra External ID, at least for now, is, I would say, a pretty young solution. So in this specific scenario, there is not a lot of customization options. However, one more thing I would like to show you is this thing called custom authentication extensions. So as you remember, I mentioned, like, for instance, if you need to include some data from external system in the token, you can actually subscribe to the event called token issuance start in Microsoft Entra External ID. And to make it simple, the thing is that during user authentication, we can call external system, grab some data, and return this data to Microsoft Entra External ID and include this data in the tokens. And now the thing is that obviously to handle such scenarios, we will need additional infrastructure and additional services like APIs, okay? That's very important. Like here, we actually have to register this extension. In my case, this is Azure Function App. And this is Azure Function App deployed in the Azure cloud. And this Function App is called every time user is authenticating. And this Azure Function App is responsible for actually, calling this external service, extracting some, potential data from the database and returning this data to Microsoft Entra external ID. So this is very important, okay? And I mean it. The thing is that to customize such events like token issue and start, we still need to write custom code. And many people are actually, do not take it under consideration that, hey, like cost is really low when it comes to Microsoft Entra external ID, like 50,000 monthly active users for free. Great, let's start building. And then they realize that, okay, like the cost of the solution, Microsoft Entra external ID, is low. However, to build this customization around, this cost will increase. So for instance, here for this token issuance event, to handle this and to get those claims or the information from external systems, we need to build some kind of API. So still we have to invest in development. And also on the other side, we have to host such solution somewhere, like this Azure Function App, we need to host it in the Azure cloud. And obviously it can increase the total cost of our SIAM solution. So I just want you to remember about it when you will be making a decision, because it's very important factor. So it's not only about Microsoft Entra external ID, it's not only about Auth0, but it's also about those extensions and how you will build them and how you will host them. Okay, perfect. So that's pretty it. So as I mentioned, like we can add those custom authentication extensions here when I click it. And here, as you can see, there are 4 of them, 4 events. So token issue and start. So when user is authenticating, actually, email OTP send. This is an extension to actually bring your own email provider. That's also a very important thing, also related to cost. If you want to customize emails that will be sent to customers with OTP codes, you will need email provider for that, and you will need an extension for that. So again, you will need to build some kind of API so Entra external ID can call it, can pass the OTP, and then you can send this customized email to your clients, your end users. So this is important factor here, okay? So additionally, as you can see, Microsoft Entra external ID is for free, but still you will need additional email service to handle this and additional API to actually communicate with Microsoft Entra external ID and also communicate with this email provider. Okay, additional events, so attribute collection start. This is when user is, for instance, providing some attributes like city or country on the sign up page. So we can actually, check whether data is correct, and attribute collection submit. So this is actually called when user clicks register button. That's what I mentioned, but actually underneath we call our external service before the user is created in the tenant. So we don't have access to unique identifier, which is object ID of the user in this event. Okay, that's very important. So it's like pre-registration event, not post-registration event when it comes to user. Okay, perfect. So yeah, obviously there are additional things here. So usage and insights. So here under usage and insights, we can check how our tenant is utilized, which applications are utilized, stuff like this, basically. So there are different kinds of charts like monthly active users per application over time, actually, MFA usage, risky users. So this information can be helpful. And obviously, if you want to export this data to any other data sources or data processing services, it's doable. You can do it, but there is additional configuration required for that, okay, to export those logs actually. Okay, perfect. So that's basically it about Microsoft Entra external ID. Now let's check Auth0. So here is Auth0 dashboard. So it's pretty similar when it comes to approach like with Entra external ID. We are accessing under manageauth0.com, and we have this dashboard where we can register our applications and also define different kinds of things in our tenant. So here, important thing is that under authentication, we can actually configure authentication methods here. So obviously Auth0 provides the standard way of authentication using username and password, but also we can federate with external identity providers. So same like with Entra external ID, like if we want to use Facebook, Google, we can also use those identity providers here. And I believe that what's really important is the fact that here under authentication profile, we actually, and this is big about Auth0, we can actually choose our login flow. So obviously there is identifier plus password, so like a standard login form. Additionally, where we can use multi-factor authentication, but also there is this identifier first profile where a user is providing email address and there is homeroom discovery configured. So for instance, we can decide whether we want to redirect user to external identity provider based on the domain part, or if this is like a local user, user will have to provide like username, password, or one-time passcode, and then we can apply MFA, and then user is authenticated. So homeroom discovery is not supported in Microsoft Entra external ID. That's important information for you guys. So if you would like to build a homeroom discovery right now with Microsoft Entra external ID, that's not possible. I mean, like this experience where a user provides email address and then you make validation on the domain. So that's actually this limitation I mentioned when it comes to Entra external ID. And obviously, there is this identifier first plus biometrics profile. It's more used under enterprise plan, where user provides the email address. There is homeroom discovery. There is standard authentication with username and password, but also we can check device biometrics here, okay, and authenticate using the fingerprint. So that's big. That's really helpful. So especially when it comes to this identifier first profile. Okay, perfect. Now, when it comes to branding, I mentioned that when it comes to Auth0, it provides quite extensive functionality when it comes to customization of the branding. So here is the universal login, okay? And as you can see, here is my login page. There is my logo, there is a background. As you can see, I updated the color of the buttons, stuff like this. And here under customization options, obviously we can customize this experience, okay? So it's quite similar like with Microsoft Entra external ID. We have this designer opened in the browser, and here we can decide like, hey, what will be the color of the button? What will be the background? What will be the logo, okay? So all those different kinds of things here. So fonts, you know, like widgets, colors, we can change it here. And obviously, if there is a need to fully customize this experience, we also have this possibility to access the HTML here and use our own components. So we can customize those user journeys here in Auth0. So as you can see, like for instance, I can also customize text elements here. Again, this is like a designer here, which I can use to, you know, like to edit different things. So for instance, here there is welcome. Okay, so we can also change it to welcome to Tech Mind Factory like this. Okay. So as you can see, I can modify it directly here from the portal. But as I mentioned, I can also use the API provided by Auth0 to extensively modify the login experience with universal login. And again, I can implement per app branding here with universal login. It's really powerful. Okay, great. So when it comes to email templates, if I click email templates here, important thing is that I can customize the email template that will be actually sent. And here, obviously, I need to have email provider. So the difference is that I can modify the email template directly here from Auth0, but still, exactly in the same way like for Entra external ID, I will need to have an email provider. So for instance, SendGrid, that will be integrated here, so I can send those emails, because email provider is only provided for a development tenant in Auth0. So again, like as I mentioned, we can customize the template of the message that will be sent, but still we need this email provider to be integrated here to send those emails. Okay, great. So that's basically about the UI customization. Now, when it comes to extensibility and user journey customizations, so Auth0 provides triggers, and this is really powerful. And this is what you will not see in Microsoft Entra External ID. I mean, you will see only some of them. So as you remember, I mentioned that in Microsoft Entra External ID, there are those custom authentication extensions. And actually, as you remember, there were 4 events, like the one to send OTP code using a custom email provider. There was another extension which was called during user authentication, and 2 more for the registration page. So when user provides attributes and when user clicks register button. So actually in Auth0, we have more triggers here. So in Entra External ID, we have this pre-user registration trigger, which actually will be called when user is registering. But in Auth0, we have pre-user registration, post-user registration, post-login, send phone message, post-reset, password reset post-challenge, post-change password, credentials exchange, so if when we use client credentials flow and machine-to-machine communication. So here, when it comes to triggers, Auth0 is, I would say, really mature in this space, and we can really subscribe to different kinds of events in the user journey. That's great, and that can be really helpful. And also, additional thing is that when it comes to UI, there is this section called Forms. So actually, if we need to additionally customize the look and feel of our user journey, and we need additional steps there, we can do it with Auth0 Forms. So that's something what is missing right now in Microsoft Entra External ID. So as you can see, for instance, here, if there is a need to display policies update to the user, I can build the whole UI with Auth0 Forms. So when user is authenticated, before user is redirected to the application, I can display such screen like, hey, new policies update, and I can provide the information, and user will have to agree to the privacy policy. And once user clicks continue button, I can update user app metadata in Auth0, and user is redirected back to the application. And as we can see on the left side, there are different kinds of components that can be used. So that's really powerful. So as you remember, if you used Azure AD B2C, obviously you could edit or modify, customize user authentication journeys using custom policies and XML files. But it was hard. It was challenging because, like to learn how those XML work together, I mean, the structure, it was really hard for developers. Here in Auth0, we have this designer, as you can see, and Auth0 Forms. So here it's like drag and drop. I can just, use different kinds of fields, components here, blocks, and customize the user authentication experience. That's really, really powerful. Okay, great. So again, when it comes to monitoring, when it comes to Auth0, there are also logs provided, okay? So we can log and see what's happening in our tenants, similarly what we saw in Microsoft Entra External ID. We can obviously export those logs to external tools exactly in the same way as we could do it with Entra External ID. And I believe that it's worth mentioning that obviously, Auth0 provides more options here when it comes to monitoring, logging. There is also a new feature called event streams. So we can actually subscribe to different kinds of actions related to user account. So when user is created, when user is deleted, when user account is updated in the Auth0 tenant, we can subscribe to those events and we can react. And in Microsoft Entra External ID, unfortunately, something like this is not possible. There is a mechanism that is called Microsoft Graph extensions in Entra ID. So you can subscribe to changes in the user profiles in Microsoft Entra ID. However, it doesn't work with Microsoft Entra External ID. That's important information. I officially confirmed that with Microsoft. So if you'd like to subscribe to different kinds of events happening to user accounts in your tenant, that's not possible, at least today with Microsoft Entra External ID. With Auth0, we can actually do it. So having said that, I just would like to summarize this discussion and this video. So first of all, obviously, assess the cost. Okay, so now you know that obviously Microsoft Entra External ID is attractive when it comes to cost. Auth0 is more expensive. However, once you assess the cost, then look at the all functionalities and requirements and scenarios you would like to implement in your SIAM solution. Because obviously cost is a very important factor. However, on the other side, you have user experience, you have all those different kinds of decisions around user authentication journeys, how you will, integrate with external systems, how you will push the data outside of your tenant and to your tenant actually. So as I mentioned before, cost is one thing, but on the other side, it's very important to analyze different kinds of scenarios because in the end, you can end up with a situation where maybe one of those solutions is cost effective, but on the other side, you are actually blocked when it comes to customization. So just to summarize, if you need cost effective solution, if you already utilize Microsoft Stack and you don't need to build advanced SIAM solution with rich authentication journeys, Microsoft Entra External ID is a perfect solution for you. You can use it and you will be fine. On the other side, if you need more specialized solution, more mature solution, if you need to customize user authentication journeys, especially per applications, you also need to subscribe to different events during authentication journeys. And also, if you need rich authentication experience and customization, then Auth0 is for you. And one more thing, obviously, if you need to implement your solution in highly regulated industries, like in banking, again, with Auth0 that will be possible because all of those FAPI compliant features. With Microsoft Entra External ID right now, it will not be possible. So that's what I wanted to say. That's what I wanted to show you in this video. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in the next videos. Thank you.